Hey there tech fans, Rick here again with another review, and today I have the Insta360 X3 camera. This is the very latest product from our friends at Insta360, and I love this technology. It's essentially an action camera that has dual lenses and dual sensors that when you turn it on and hit record, it records everything in a 360-degree circle, and then later on you can go back and decide exactly what you want to look at. So it's like having an entire camera crew with you the next time you're out skiing or skateboarding or at a wedding. It's a beautiful product. And there were some improvements on the X3 over their last generation product, the One X2, which I've owned since it was released. I love that camera as well, but a couple of things they changed on this camera really make it attractive for me, and this is going to be my go-to 360-degree camera. Now, before I get too deep into all the things that were changed and why I like this product so much, I always like to start with an unboxing just to show you everything that's included with the kit, and that way you'll understand exactly what you get if you buy the product. And I think that's important because a lot of times you buy a product, it shows up, you open up the box, and there's something missing. And there's nothing more disappointing than thinking you're going to use a product and then have to run back out to a store to find a cable or a charger or some kind of memory card. So this product has got pretty much everything you need to get started right out of the box. So I'll start with the unboxing, and then I'll go over the specifications just briefly because they've only changed a couple of things. The form factor is the same, the technology in large parts the same. They've improved some of the software and a couple other things that have changed that, again, I think they really thought about how we were using the original One X2 and upped it a little bit. They upped their game a little bit with this one, so I like it an awful lot. And then I'll come back and do a closer look because I always like to show you exactly what the camera looks like and point out how you can charge it, how the battery comes out, where the memory card goes, all the things you're going to need just basically to get you started with the camera. It's always a good idea to read through the manual, go through the online tutorials, because you can do a lot of magical things with this camera that aren't intuitive initially. So go on their website, look at some of their help videos to figure out how you can do fly-throughs and how you can do all these magic tricks with it. Bullet time is one of my favorites. But anyway, and then I'll come back at the end, and I just want to point out very succinctly the things they've changed between the X2 and the brand new X3, because I think this is the camera to own. Now, I'm not saying if you own the X2, you've got to run out and upgrade to this one, because I think you're getting probably 80 or 85% the same experience on the original X2, but the X3 is the camera to own if you've ever thought about getting into a 360-degree camera. If you're an outdoors person, maybe you're a skier or skateboarder, you're out there fishing and you need to capture a lot of different things at the same time, and then decide later on what's important, because again, I know I'm going on here, but having a camera that captures everything around you, you may be looking this way with an action camera and something really exciting's happening back there, you're gonna miss it. Not with this one, you're gonna get everything. So pretty cool camera. Anyway, let me get started with the unboxing because I'm getting way ahead of myself. So when you open up the box, for starters, they offer this camera in a couple of different packages. I bought, I think it was called the Explorer package, where I got the camera, I got a 256 gig memory card, I got a selfie stick, and I got an extra cleaning cloth for the outside. So that was kind of a nice package because, again, everything I need is in the box. I don't have to run out and find a memory card. I would suggest a large memory card because you're recording 4K video on this. That takes up a lot of space on the card. It can record for almost 70 minutes, so you want to have a big card in there so you're not running out of memory space. But anyway, inside the box, you're going to find the camera, and it's a beautiful camera. It's the same form factor as the X2, but it's got a couple of key differences between the two that I'll explain in a minute. So you get the camera, you get a charging cable. Now, if I were to pick on anything inside the kit, it would be the charging cable because it's a USB-A to USB-C, and that's how you charge the camera. And you can use any standard USB charger. 5 volts, 2.4 amps is fine. It'll take quite a long time to charge it. So go with a higher powered charger if you can. A 33 watt, 65 watt would be really good. If it's PD, even better, because that's going to adjust the voltage and current. But my pet peeve is when you include a cable with a product, make it longer. Don't make a really short cable like this, because if I plug a charger into the wall, I've got to keep the camera right there on the counter. I like to have at least a 3-foot cable. So that's the one thing I'd pick on, is that this is not an expensive accessory to include. Give me a longer cable. Anyway, it's a cable about this long. It works really well, but it's really, really short. You'll find a cleaning cloth. Now that's going to be super important because these lenses have to be clean or you're going to pick up all kinds of artifacts. So there's a cleaning cloth included. With my kit, they actually gave me a second cleaning cloth. And there's a ton of manuals. Now, I always recommend reading through the manuals. There's a quick start guide, there's a compliance guide, a warranty guide. There's a guide here about waterproofing this camera because you can use this down to 10 meters underwater, 30 feet roughly, which is about what you do if you were snorkeling or you're a new diver. You're not going down really deep. If you need to go down deeper than that, you can buy a waterproof case this fits in that takes you down way deeper than that. So if you're, like I was a sport diver for a while, you can go down to 100 feet with that waterproof case. But most divers that go down for fun on the weekends and recreational are going down less than 30 feet. So it's going to be perfectly waterproof, which again, I think is amazing because you can take this and dunk it underwater down to 10 meters and capture some amazing underwater footage. In addition to that, I mentioned the cable, the selfie stick. So they include a selfie stick. Now this one is shorter than the selfie stick for the X2. I have that one here. You can see there's a little bit of difference in height, but this one is actually perfect. I was using this camera last weekend at a wedding, and this gave me everything I needed. I could set it up on a tripod on the table, capture the entire wedding. When the couple was walking down the aisle, I extended the selfie stick like this, put it on a little tripod on the ground, and that's plenty big. I mean, that's plenty long, and it folds up nice and small, so I think it's a great addition. Now, one magical thing, if you haven't heard about this before, is the camera can shoot a 360-degree image, both video and a photo, but it makes the selfie stick disappear, which, again, the first time I did it, I couldn't believe it because you're basically filming yourself from above if you got the selfie stick way out, and it sees you, but the selfie stick's gone. Now, it is a little weird if you're holding your arm out like this because it looks like you're pointing something and there's nothing in your hand. So you have to be a little clever about how you hold it. But if you use their selfie stick, it's completely invisible in the video and the photos you take with the unit. All right, so that's it for the unboxing. So let me talk a little bit about the X3, and to give you some comparisons, I've got the X2 right here. So this is the X3, that's the X2. You can see the form factor on it is roughly the same. The X3 is a little bit thicker than the X2, and that's because there's a lot more electronics in there, but more importantly, they've increased the size of the sensor. So with the X3, you're getting a 1/2-inch sensor and a 1/2-inch sensor, which is a huge improvement. It's almost twice the size of the sensor in the X2. This did a great job. This does a phenomenal job of recording video. You can record 4K at 60 frames a second. You can take 72 megapixel, 360-degree images. So this is really the camera to own. It's like having a DSLR in your pocket that can somehow automatically spin around and capture everything around you. I think it's a fantastic, fantastic capture. The other big difference you're going to notice is pretty quickly the display in the front of this, the touchscreen, is much larger over here. And that was the one complaint. If I was complaining, and I'm not a complainer, but if I was moaning a little bit, it was that the display was really small here. It did a good job, and honestly, you're managing most of it from your phone, which connects over Bluetooth to it or Wi-Fi to it. But I like to have a display where I can get in there and modify things. I can modify the frame rate, or I'm going to modify the resolution. Whatever I want to change, I want to be able to change on the display. And it was a tiny little circular display. And honestly, even inside the circle, it was a square inside the circle, so it was even smaller. And you get a little older like me, your eyes are not that great, so I really had to focus on it to get it going. So it was a little bit of a pain in the neck. This display on here, this touchscreen, is 2.29 inches big. It's plenty big to see everything that's going on. You can review what you've recorded on there. You can make changes on there. You can change your perspective. So everything you need to do, you can do through that display. That's another big increase in size over the display in the older one, and I think a huge improvement, which really makes this, to me, an incredibly functional product. They've also changed some of the software, so you can do all the things you could do with the older version of software on the X2. They've added a couple of new things in there. One of them is called Me Mode, which when you turn it on, it'll focus on you. And no matter what you do with the camera, no matter where you go, how the camera moves, it's going to keep you in the center of the frame. Now, what's interesting is in the editing software, there's a lot of artificial intelligence built in where you can turn that stuff on afterwards. So for example, at the wedding, I actually had people walking down the aisle. I had the camera going. I could touch somebody's face as they were walking past me, and the camera would shift its perspective to follow them down the aisle. Then I could tap on the next person and follow them down the aisle. So the artificial intelligence built into this camera makes the editing process incredibly easy, where you can focus on almost anything. Another key thing is that the camera itself has this magical, and I've used that word a couple of times, but the technology to enable this is pretty complex. It has this magical horizon steady mode, where no matter what you do with the camera, and you know, I can move it a little bit like this. Most action cameras can accommodate that kind of movement where it's going to keep the horizon steady. With this camera, you can flip it 360 degrees and it adjusts the horizon to keep it rock solid. So you don't have to walk down the aisle with the camera if you're at a wedding to keep it perfectly straight and worried about shaking it. You can shake the heck out of it and it's going to keep that image completely stable. You can also stick it out in the aisle like this, and it's going to register that to be a horizontal horizon out there. So it knows what you're doing with the camera. And with the internal gyros, it makes adjustment in the imaging to keep it completely straight. So they've really thought of a lot of things that were really clumsy in the early days of 360 cameras, where you had to keep them on a really stable tripod. You couldn't shake them, couldn't move them, or the image would, blur. You'd have issues with the resolution. With this one, again, I don't know where they came up with the technology. The engineers in their lab that put the AI together for the software are brilliant design engineers, and it really is On its own, the software is a major epiphany, but having the camera use that software just gives you the perfect package. So anyway, that's it for the overview. If you stay tuned next, I'm going to take a closer look at the camera. I'll explain, how you charge it and all the things I'd mentioned before. And then I'll come back really quickly and just kind of point out the differences between these two cameras, or I should say the improvements on the X3, because a lot of people are asking me, Rick, I've got the X2, is it worth the upgrade? Or I've never had a camera before that shoots 360. Is this the one to buy? And I'd like to give you some recommendations there. So stay tuned next for the closer look, and then come back at the end for that here's the things you need to know about section. The main body of the Insta360 X3 is made from a high-impact plastic, which allows it to be lightweight but still incredibly durable. The outside edge has a texture, and the front and the back of the camera has a rubberized feel to it, which makes it really easy to grip it. It just feels great in your hand. And it has a bit of weight to it as well, so you know you're dealing with a professional product. I also like the fact that they went with this candy bar design, because a lot of the action cameras nowadays are square and really bulky. With this one being a little thinner and a little longer, it just makes it a whole lot easier to slide it in your pocket or your backpack and take it with you pretty much anywhere. Now on the one side of the camera you'll find a lens, and a lens on the opposite side, and behind those lenses is a 1/2-inch sensor, and that's a big upgrade over the X2. And that 1/2-inch sensor allows you to now record on the X3 5.7K 360-degree HDR video, or you can snap incredible 72 megapixel 360-degree photos. And I still find it pretty amazing that the camera has the smarts to stitch together the images here and the images here into a 360-degree view and eliminate the thickness of the camera. I swear it's Martian technology inside this product to be able to do that as well as it does. Now on the one side you'll find a power button here and a quick shot button right there, and that'll allow you to move between the video and photo settings inside the camera. And on the other side you'll find two latches here for the battery compartment and another latch above it that opens a door for the charging port behind it. Now normally you won't have to take the battery out of the camera because you can charge it in the camera. The only time you'd take it out is if you had extra batteries and wanted to swap a new one in, or if you had to change the memory card inside, and I'll show you that in a second. Now to remove the battery, you're going to pull these two latches in towards the center and it's going to pop out. So I'll pull that one down. Notice that orange band right there? Keep an eye on that because that indicates that it's not fully closed, and you want to make sure that it's closed because without that it won't have water protection. So anytime you put the battery back in, always look for those orange bands. If you see one, squeeze down and it'll disappear. But to take the battery out, you'll pull down on this one and push up on that one. Now watch what happens when I push up on that one. See that battery pop out? It's spring loaded, and that's the battery. Now, just take a second and look at the size of that battery. That's fully half the camera, which means the lenses, the sensors, the brains, the electronics are all in this top section right here. Look how big that battery is. And with a full battery, you can record almost 70 minutes. So you need a big battery, but I think it's amazing that they can cram everything else into this tiny little spot up top. All right, so inside the battery compartment, look close right there. You'll see the micro SD card. That's the memory card. Right now I've got 128 giga in there, but look how much space is taken up by that battery inside there. That's absolutely incredible to me that this is all the electronics and processing. Anyway, to put the battery back in, you can't put it in backwards because it won't let you jam it in there. So when you get it in the correct position, you're going to want to line this connector up at the pins in the bottom and just drop it in. And again, it's spring loaded. So to close it, you'll squeeze here and you'll hear it click. Now you want to make sure these latches are fully closed. And again, to do that, I always like to pull out on them to make sure that they're fully seated because that battery, let me pull it out again and show you. That battery has a gasket around the outside, that blue ring out there, and that's the only thing keeping water from getting inside the camera if you take it underwater. And the best part is this can go down to 10 meters underwater without a case around it. It's totally waterproof. So if you're scuba diving or you're in a pool, you can take this down and capture some amazing underwater photos and video. If you have to go deeper, Insta360 makes a waterproof case you can use if you're a diver and you got to go down to 100 feet or whatever. You can put the case around it. But normally, just put it on your selfie stick and go down there and scuba dive a little bit. You'll have fun with it. But it's really important to have that battery fully seated. So squeeze that in. Make sure you don't see any orange there. Now the charging port's above that. To open that one, you'll pull up on it here. It'll pop open. And there's the USB-C connection. You can use a standard USB charger to charge this. 5 volts, 2.4 amps is plenty. I use a 65-watt charger that's PD as well. Tends to charge it a little bit faster, but you can use pretty much anything you use today to charge your USB devices. But of course, the bigger the power, the better probably. To close this up, you'll just push down on it. And again, I always like to make sure that it's fully closed right there. On this side, you'll find an indicator that it's turned on. And on the bottom, there's the 1/4 inch 20, and that can be used with the selfie stick or you can put it on a tripod. Now to turn the unit on, you'll tap that top button once. Now it's going to yell at me. See, the light just came on? It's going to yell at me because I haven't activated it yet. So it goes through the boot up routine, it shakes a little bit, makes that noise, and it'll come up on the main screen. Now it's saying to me, please download the app. I haven't done that yet, I get it. So let me turn that off. Hey, there I am, look at me. How you doing? Anyway, once you come up in the main mode, you can switch between cameras if you want. If you want to pull down from the top, you're going to get all your settings. You can make the adjustments as needed there. If you want to change some of the settings of what you're shooting, you can decide what you're going to shoot. If you go this direction, it's going to bring up any video that you've recorded already. At this point, we haven't recorded any video, so there's no files. And this allows you to, these two buttons down the bottom allow you to switch between front and back camera or switch between the quick modes right there. To turn it off, you'll push that button and hold it. I just hit the button to put it in standby mode. If I want to turn it off, I'll hold it for a couple of seconds. You'll feel it vibrate, and then it'll actually go back to sleep. And that's pretty much it. Now, one thing I do love about this, and I didn't really talk about this, is the larger display, because the X2 had a really small display on it. There's the X2, and it worked okay, but the challenge was with that small circle as the display, the actual display was even smaller because it was a square inside that circle. And again, it worked okay, but it was really something you had to focus on to pick the right settings. With this one, it's almost like having a widescreen TV on the front of the unit. So between the upgrade in the sensors and the upgrade in the touchscreen, I think this is a home run. This is definitely a big improvement over the X2 from those 2 points of view. And other than that, it's pretty much similar like I'd mentioned before. A lot of the settings are the same. It's just you have a bigger screen to actually see what's going on. So that's pretty much it for the closer look. I hope that closer look was helpful. One thing I forgot to mention in the unboxing was the actual pouch that comes with the camera, because the camera was sitting on it and I forgot to mention it. They have upgraded the pouch, and you're thinking, how can they upgrade a pouch? What they did was add this little slit in the side right here, because one of the beefs I had with the camera, the X2, was that you can't lay it down because there's lenses on both sides. So if you lay it down on a table, you'll get by with it a couple of times, but eventually you're going to scratch those lenses. So I always lay it down on top of the pouch. But then if I want to charge it, a lot of times I want to keep it in the pouch because I don't want to take a chance of it falling off a table. There's no way to charge it in the pouch. By having this slit on the side, this simple little slit lines up perfectly with the charging port on the side. So you can slide it in the pouch, open up that little door, and charge it inside the pouch. So again, Insta360 is thinking about every way you're going to use this. They use them themselves. I'm sure their design engineers and their employees have them out in the field, and they're figuring stuff out when they're in the field going, hey, we got to talk to the design guys to change the pouch to add that little port where I can charge it. All right, so the camera comparison, which is really, I think, what you're concerned about. If you've never owned a camera before, I'm going to tell you right now, this is the one to own. So if you haven't got a 360 camera and you're thinking, boy, I'd love to get into that 360 photography, this is the one to own. If you own the X2, I can't really recommend the upgrade to the X3. I can't really recommend that because, again, you're getting 85%, maybe even 90% of the experience here that you're getting here. Okay, you're getting higher resolution here. You're getting a bigger display on the front of it for the touchscreen than you are over here. But essentially, if you're managing it from your phone, which I promise you that's where you're going to manage it most times because you have remote control of it, you're not going to worry so much about that front screen. For me, that's a big deal. If that's a big deal for you, then this is the camera to go with, and it is worth the upgrade. But honestly, the X2 is still, up until I bought this one, my favorite camera to use, and it does everything I need it to do. Now, the changes between the two, like I'd mentioned, they upgraded the sensors. So over here, you've got a 1/2-inch sensor, front and back, which is going to capture a 4K 360-degree image around the camera. You can take 72 megapixel pictures. It has HDR video built in, so it really is an improvement from an imaging perspective to give you much richer pictures. So if you're doing commercial work, certainly if you're doing real estate photography or doing any kind of sport photography with this one, you're going to get a better image there. You've got more information coming in through that 4K resolution than you do on the X2. But honestly, again, for me, this is probably the one that I'd use most. If this was never out, I'd be perfectly happy with this one. The other big difference, like I'd mentioned before, is the larger sensor. So that was the one thing that for me was worth the upgrade. Between this one and this one is that I really needed to see that sensor on the front. I've used this a bunch at different events and family parties and things like that. It just took me a couple of minutes to get it set up, and you don't want to really be fiddling with a camera when you're trying to capture the moment. It's a birthday party, everybody's going to sing happy birthday. You want to just spin up the camera, do what you have to do, and start the recording. It was tricky here. I had to fiddle around an awful lot. It was hard to see it. I always, because my fingers are big, I would swipe left and it would pull up different menus, so it was just a big headache. I ended up managing it through my phone. With this one, I don't need the phone phone app, because I can see everything that's going on, and it's incredibly easy to really quickly spin it up, tap the screen a few times, and have exactly what I need set up and recording. So for me, the larger screen was really important. The other difference between it, the software, this one has got the Me mode on it. They're calling it the Me mode, which I think is, again, it's wizardry, that you can have a camera that's going to keep the horizon perfectly steady no matter what you're doing with the camera. And on top of that, the intelligence inside the camera will focus in on you and keep you in the center of the frame. It's exactly like if you had a drone that was flying around that was following you, or if you had one of the automated products like the Osmo products that could zero in on you no matter what you did with your gimbal. You'd move it around, but the camera would keep you focused. This is doing it digitally. And that to me is a lot more amazing than a mechanical gimbal, because mechanical gimbals make sense to me because you've got gyros inside of it, keeping track of how the thing's moving, and it's counterbalancing that. With this one, the software's got to do everything, and it does it beautifully. It does it wonderfully. So I think, again, Insta360, the core technology inside this is worth a lot. It's worth an awful lot, the IP behind that technology. And I think for them to put it into a camera that's small, it's durable, it's an action camera level kind of durability, slides into your pocket, it just beats every other action camera out there, because it's an action camera, but it's like having 12 action cameras recording at the same time in every cardinal direction you can imagine in one file, that you later on through software on your phone can decide what I want to put in that video. You can edit it really quickly, bundle it up into a clip, and throw it up on your social media site. So again, between the two, wonderful product. Nothing wrong with this product. If you can find these, especially in the secondary market, still a really good buy. I think they've discounted them as well, so good piece to look at. But if you want a brand new one and you want the latest features, the X3 is the one to go with. So hopefully you found this review helpful. I like them both. I really, really love this one. So that's my opinion on it. Anyway, thanks an awful lot for watching. If you have any questions at all on anything I've covered today, drop those in the comments below, and I promise to get back to you as soon as I can. I'll probably do a couple more clips on these guys, comparisons between them on videos. I want to show you some of the tricks that you can do with both of these cameras, because it's a magical thing that you can take these out in the field and do all kinds of special effects with them just with the camera and a little bit of software. It's pretty cool stuff. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks an awful lot for watching, and as always, stay nerdy.